While I know they ever finish for Nigerian politics, they talk I'm true because what you're about to hear will leave you speechless. So there's this gist flying around that Vice Admiral Ibas boldly said President Tinubu can't probe him. Yes, you heard that right. And this is coming shortly after the Rivers House of Assembly announced plans to investigate the state spending during his time in office. But guess what? Ibas reportedly rejected the bold move. In other words, now from there, the wala start from. This man, he talk him with full chest, even saying that the man who put him there, that is President Tinubu, has no right to question him. Why? Because according to him, everything he did was under Tinubu and Wike's instructions. But now that Governor Fubara is back in charge, people are saying, Ibas, no more ID. Come out and address these allegations. Clear your name. Let our elected governor, we will vote for, Saint Fubara, let him breathe. In fact, the people went as far as saying, all this your Thanksgiving tour up and down, it no go help you if you no talk your own side of the story. Now take a listen.
Certainly, Rufai, as we thought that calm and peace and some sort of sanity would be returned to Rivers State, it looks like there's something new brewing, and rightfully so.
With respect, I don't think there's anything brewing in Rivers State. I think the shenanigan is just continuing. The other day, when the lawmakers said they were going to probe what was happening in Rivers State, I knew it was a joke, it was a ruse. There was nothing there. They just wanted to act in such a way so that people would say, they're doing something. They cannot probe Ibas. It happened under a state of emergency, which was an aberration as orchestrated by President Tinubu. And now Nyesom Wike has also said, okay, it was part of the plot, because his words, not mine. He said that if we wanted the state of emergency to continue, I would have made it continue. So we all know the aberration. And that monies went under the drain, that they will couch it under emergency rule, and they can say it's for emergency expenditure. So it's all part of the joke we see in this country. I'm sorry, the state of emergency, when you look at it, it also benefited the same national State House of Assembly that said they want to probe somebody, because it was in favor of their faction, really, when you look at it. So there's nothing there. It's all part of the charade. You see, there are many smoke screens in Nigeria. People talk on the face of newspaper outlets or television and the likes, and say all sorts just to be able to get Nigerians excited. I'm sure the lawmakers probably heard the zeitgeist from people that say, we must probe the, Ibas administration, and they said, okay, let's just repeat that in the State House of Assembly to make people feel good. And they've repeated it now. Nothing is going to come out of it. It's part of the joke that happens in Nigeria. But I think the formative thing that is very sad about Rivers State is that such an aberration occurred and the Supreme Court didn't deem it fit to hear it. People over the weekend have spoken up about it. I think the latest reaction is that of Chidi Odekalu. That was also berating the Supreme Court, like we've called them out. The fact that things like this happen, in fact, even Femi Falana berated them over the weekend. That's such an important matter of national importance. The president declared a state of emergency at a time when, visible to our eyes, we didn't see any security threat, which we know was to settle scores, which a certain minister was beating his chest after the declaration of the state of emergency that he won in this political impasse. And the Supreme Court could not hear the case. But the same Supreme Court was quick to hear, in about a little over 2 months, the case of that same Rivers State as it pertains to the local government elections, and they quickly gave a determination on it when it was in favor of a particular political side. So that's the sad part of the country, And we will never stop talking about that, because, you see, it will be said that we spoke up for our democracy, and we said it the way it had to be said. That's the part I will always say. We don't care whose ox is God. We don't care who's not going to feel happy we saying this. It has to be said because it's the truth, and the truth is always hard.
Raise the question about accountability. And that same question is about Rivers. Ibas, Vice Admiral, is saying nobody can probe him. Look, I respect military officers because they are usually well trained, like Catholic priests. They send them to school. They train them. They give them exposure. An ordinary military officer of Nigeria is a well-educated man at the officer level. So what is Ibas saying? He's saying he's accountable only to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. That's a very ignorant, unintelligent, uneducated thing to say. I believe he must be intelligent enough to know that when you manage a process in Nigeria, you can be called upon to account. So his argument that the House of Assembly of Rivers State cannot question him is illiterate, and he must be so informed in case he doesn't watch television. What the House of Assembly of Rivers State has said is that, look, yes, within the purview of the Constitution, the National Assembly can make laws, but they don't have evidence that the over 400 billion that was spent within 6 months, that the National Assembly had oversight. That money belongs to the people of Rivers State. Ibas must give account. He cannot say that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu gave him mandate. He cannot give him mandate to spend money anyhow. Even President Tinubu does not have that right under the Nigerian Constitution. Section 305, the way President Tinubu went about it, having been declared illegal, unconstitutional, and unjustified. So who is Ibas to come and say nobody can ask him questions? The people of Rivers State, they have the right to ask questions about how their money was spent. And he must be prepared to give proper account. So Martina Amewule, and his colleagues in the House of Assembly, they are representatives of the people of Rivers. And the people of Rivers State cannot have an illegal situation in which somebody came around, spent 6 months, and he will come around and say, I don't need to give account to you. I have fulfilled the mandate that President Tinubu gave me. No, President Tinubu does not determine the nature of Nigerian democracy. That's why it's called the government of the people, and the representatives of the people should stand up and ask questions. If they fail at the level of the National Assembly, we should encourage the people in Rivers State to ask questions. That, in my view, is the issue.
Absolutely. You know, we're fond of saying government is a continuum, but when it comes to accountability, when it comes to giving account for what we have done during our time in office, suddenly there's a myopic view around my tenure, my term. However, like Dr. Abati has said so eloquently, this gentleman, under his caretaker period, under his stewardship, Rivers State enjoyed, on average, about 40 billion per month from FAC revenues. Now, a lot of that, we are aware, of course, is from the 13% derivation fund. What does that tell you? This is money that is coming from the nation's wealth, from the sovereign wealth, from the natural resources that Nigeria was endowed with by God, that no man can claim to own, or no man can claim to have a final say over. Those are resources that are supposed to be enjoyed by every single Nigerian freely as a birthright, a God-given right. Now, it becomes challenging when somebody feels that they don't need to give account for such a massive largesse, especially as those of the people of Rivers State are beginning to question the fact that some of the projects that were supposed to be obvious and evident for them to see that emerged from this 6-month period are non-existent. For example, we know that one of the primary projects was the rehabilitation or the reconstruction of the State House of Assembly. They say that it was touched, but there's no real progress being made there. What about the other projects that had been met on ground that we would have liked to have seen some sort of progress with, some sort of development? You know, now there's a great trend of governors who like to go around and commission and unveil all that they have done. We would have thought that the transition period of the sole administrator would have been one where he could show us and tell us what it is that he has done in the last 6 months, as opposed to giving us public lectures and giving us Thanksgiving services and talking about peace. Beyond peace, which is of course very important, is the fact that there's money that was spent. Now, there are also accusations coming out of the same state as reported by the New Telegraph newspaper that some of the civil servants are accusing him of ill treatment. One of his wins that he says ideas he made while he was in office is that he was able to do a 5 billion naira verification with regards to pensions and wages. And some of the civil servants in Rivers State are saying that this is inaccurate, that this is all shrouded with a degree of corruption, and that they're still ghost workers and an overinflated wage bill in the past 6 months. Now, he has to answer these questions because these are all allegations. So who is going to respond? Now, if he's saying he's accountable to the president or accountable to the National Assembly, that's all fair and fine. But none of those office holders are above the laws of Nigeria. And sincerely, none of those office holders are above accounting and are above the checks and balances when it comes to being accountable for the money that is the natural God-given resource, is from the natural God-given resource of this country.
Omo, na small you may make Dr. Abati swear for Ibas live on national TV. But here's the reduced. Ibas administration ended on September 17, 2025, shortly after President Tinubu lifted the 6-month emergency rule. But now, ever since that, the Rivers House of Assembly has been calling Mr. Ibas to come and give accounts of those 6 months. And as Rufai rightly said, these same people calling him that to come and give accounts, all they did was benefited from whatever he did during the 6 months. Now, as you can see, it's as if there's more behind closed doors. These people are not telling us because the fact that they keep on telling him to come and give accounts of the 6 months. It is not as if they did not benefited from those 6 months. So the question now is, what is causing these old basketballs? Just like I said, something is definitely happening behind closed doors that we don't even know for now. Soon, I know say everything could come out. If you enjoyed this update and you want more like this, it is very easy. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. And please do well to like this video and share to other platforms. I will see you in the next video.